What is generative AI? Basically, generative AI, or Gen AI for short, is a type of AI model that creates or generates new material based on huge amounts of training data. Let's break it down in more detail. I'll start with machine learning. Machine learning is a process where AI models analyze data and learn from it. That means they identify patterns and trends in the data. The models are trained and run on giant servers located in AI data centers. After a model is trained on enough data, it could use that training data to do different tasks. In the case of generative AI, those tasks involve generating new material, which is supposed to mimic human-made content. To do that, a Gen AI model has to be trained on tons and tons of human content, which is why most major models are trained on basically the entire internet, or very large portions of it at least. The end result is an AI model that can generate content very similar to the human content it was trained on. That's how you can end up with tools that can generate blog posts, photorealistic images, graphics, videos, music, code, and more. It's not just about content either. Some AI tools can simulate human conversation, allowing you to talk back and forth with them. So as you can see, there are a lot of applications for this technology. For example, if you wanted an AI tool to generate a LinkedIn post for you, for it to do that well, it would have to be trained on a ton of existing LinkedIn posts. But assuming it was, it could then generate a new post that imitates the style of the post it was trained on. You could upload some of your own past posts so that it could imitate your specific style, although if you were to do that, you should make sure not to upload any private or sensitive information. Of course, it's worth pointing out that generative AI isn't the only type of AI out there, although the lines between the types are blurring. For example, you have predictive AI, which predicts the future trends based on past data. Having said that, generative AI is definitely the most well-known type of AI. Whenever you hear about big-name tools like ChatGPT, or when you see AI content flooding social media, that's Gen AI. You've probably encountered several generative AI tools before, or at least heard of them. The first one to really get popular was ChatGPT, but it's not the only one. Other big names include Claude, Gemini, and Midjourney, to name a few. When you hear about Gen AI, you'll often hear words used like learning, thinking, assistant, and so on. All of these words ascribe human attributes to this technology, which might make it seem appropriate given that generative AI outputs can feel almost human. But don't be fooled, AI is just an advanced program built to interact with data in a particular way. Even when AI generates whole paragraphs of prose, it doesn't know what it's saying like a person would. To an AI tool, all the letters in a blog post or all the pixels in an image are basically data, and the AI is simply arranging that data in a particular way based on probabilities it calculates from its training data. Which word is most likely to follow another word in a given context? Which arrangement of pixels is more likely to correspond to a particular prompt? These are the questions an AI model is designed to ask, and it answers these questions by looking at its training data. So generative AI is really good at imitating human content in a convincing way, but the key word there is imitating. At the end of the day, that's what generative AI does, which means it's limited by the pattern in its training data. You could get new combinations of things, like several design elements brought together, but AI can't currently invent things outside of what's contained in its training data. So a lot of AI-generated content tends to feel kind of the same. That leads me to my next point, which is that generative AI, like any technology, has a bunch of different strengths and weaknesses. Let's look at some of those, starting with the positives. First, generative AI can potentially save you time. Instead of spending 6 hours on a blog post, you could have a chatbot generate a suggested outline for you to get started. That allows you to spend less time there staring at a blank page trying to figure out your starting point. To be clear, I wouldn't recommend writing whole pieces of content with AI, but it can still speed things up when it comes to tasks like research or idea generation. Another benefit of generative AI is that it helps you research niche or complex information. Google's still a good research tool, but for super in-depth topics, it can sometimes take time to dig into the information you need. But using AI can help you get that information faster. Let's say you've started using a new CMS for your website and you're trying to figure out how to do a particular task in the platform. You might use generative AI to get some quick info on how to best do that task, without spending hours trying to figure it out yourself. Having said that, you should always fact-check the info you get from Gen AI, especially when you plan on including that information in your marketing content. I'll explain why that is in just a minute. Finally, Gen AI can help you come up with ideas. Now, don't get an idea from AI and run with it without a second thought. Your creativity is what turns an idea into a full-blown winning project. What AI can do is help nudge your brain in the right direction for you to come up with something new. Maybe you're struggling to come up with an idea for a social media post, so you ask ChatGPT for some ideas. Even if none of the ideas it gives you are usable, one of them might include something that gives you a better idea, which you might not have thought of on your own. It's the spark that lights the fire. Okay, now that we've covered some of the benefits, let's look at the few downsides of generative AI. First of all, AI hallucinates, like it makes things up at random. Not only is there a danger of you being misinformed, but there's also the risk of including untrue information in content you create with the help of generative AI. That could drive away customers or even lead you to getting sued. And lawsuits have happened, so fact-checking is critical. Always check your sources, and if an AI tool doesn't provide any, ask for them. Then make sure those sources weren't hallucinated. A Google search can help here. Another issue with Gen AI is that it could spread bias. Even when a chatbot doesn't straight up hallucinate something, it could still present information in a biased way. Think about it. Humans have bias, and AI is trained on human content. So AI is pulling in bias from all of the human-made content it learned from. Finally, there's the fact that people have some mixed feelings about generative AI. A Pew Research study in the US showed that almost 40% of respondents are equally excited and concerned about how AI is growing in daily life. The data tells us that there's a risk associated with leaning too heavily on AI for your business, particularly the parts of your marketing that the public interacts with. You'll have to consider all of these pros and cons when deciding whether or not to use AI at your business. And if you decide to use it, be thoughtful about how you use it. Well, there you are, generative AI explained. If you want to see more helpful explanations like this about different tools and strategies for your digital marketing, be sure to subscribe to our channel. But that's all for now. See you next time.